Why do Russians support Putin? Vladimir Putin is considered a dictator by most of the Western world, which often exhibits Russophobia. Many Russians share this view. Yet in the 2020 constitutional amendment vote, Russians overwhelmingly opened the door for Putin's lifelong rule with a staggering 78% support. This overwhelming support raises suspicions of election fraud. While there are certainly aspects that warrant skepticism, they aren't significant enough to overturn Putin's victory, a fact even his opponents acknowledge. Putin's popularity has been consistently high, 53% in 2000, 71% in 2004, 64% in 2012, and 77% in 2018, winning by large margins. If not electoral fraud, does this mean Russians are ignorant of what dictatorship is? This is a common criticism in the Western world, implying that the people's ignorance leads to uncritical support of a dictator. This is partly true. Russians over 40 who didn't receive adequate education during the tumultuous shift from communism to capitalism and the dissolution of the Soviet Union form Putin's solid support base. However, this phenomenon is not unique to Russia. Globally, less educated people tend to support far-right conservatism. Moreover, Putin's United Russia Party is not considered far-right in Russia. Even among the well-educated younger generation, those in their 20s and 30s, Putin enjoys substantial support, sometimes exceeding 80%, although this varies by survey. If Russian people are neither fooled by election fraud nor ignorant, could it be that they simply prefer dictatorship? While it's true that Russians are accustomed to autocratic rule, with a history of nearly 300 years under harsh Mongol rule since the 13th century, followed by the longest period of absolute monarchy in Europe until the Communist Revolution, and then a communist dictatorship, it's not accurate to say they like being oppressed. Russians have historically initiated revolutions to escape such dictatorships. So, if it's not about election fraud, ignorance, or a love for dictatorship, why do they support Putin? The answer is simple. Regardless of how the Western world views him, to many Russians, Putin is an exceptional leader. He is seen as the hero who resurrected Russia from the ruins left by Boris Yeltsin. The 1990s in Russia were a time of extreme chaos. Boris Yeltsin, a radical reformer, led this period, which Russians unhesitatingly refer to as the lost decade. Yeltsin, who became Russia's first president in 1991, aimed to introduce a market economy as quickly as possible, with policies of price and production liberalization. These policies devastated Russia's unprepared economy for capitalism. With the implementation of these policies, prices skyrocketed, leading to hyperinflation that rendered Russian savings worthless. State-owned companies, unable to adapt to the market economy, went bankrupt, resulting in soaring unemployment rates. The energy sector, one of Russia's few profitable industries, was taken over by emerging tycoons known as oligarchs. These individuals, in collusion with Yeltsin's close associates, brought about severe corruption and crony capitalism. The haphazard privatization of state-owned enterprises led to the transfer of key companies to Western interests, fueling the anti-Western sentiment in Russia today. The situation reached a critical point in 1998 when Russia declared a moratorium on foreign debt payments due to the currency crisis, leaving most Russians in a dire situation. To illustrate the economic devastation, Russia's per capita GDP plummeted from $5,300 in 1990, just before Yeltsin took office, to $1,600 in 1998. According to one statistic, the poverty rate in Russia during this period reached as high as 90%. The term integral became widely known, referring to Russian female university students who turned to prostitution. They frequented hotels, using their basic English skills to solicit Western businessmen, and this became one of the most envied occupations in Russia at that time. With the economic downturn, crime rates soared. Daily life became perilously unsafe, with rampant murder crimes. Simple activities like watching a movie, dining out, taking a bus, or walking on the street became life-threatening. The mafia dominated the underground economy, making it difficult for legitimate businesses to operate without their involvement. The inner girl phenomenon was also a part of the mafia's ventures. During this tumultuous period, the dissolution of the Soviet Union accelerated. Particularly damaging to Boris Yeltsin's popularity was Russia's defeat in the war against the Chechen Republic, which sought independence. Russia's population declined to nearly half that of the United States, and its economy dwindled to a mere 10% of the U.S. GDP. The stature Russia once held as a superpower rivaling the U.S. during the Cold War era vanished. Even the U.S. downgraded Russia from a global superpower to a regional power. It was Vladimir Putin who resurrected Russia from this state of ruin, earning the fervent support of generations who remember the nightmarish 1990s. At the end of 1999, amidst Russia's peak chaos, Yeltsin abruptly resigned, and Putin, then Prime Minister, assumed the role of acting president. At this point, Putin was virtually unknown in the Western world, so much so that he wasn't even included in the U.S.'s list of 500 potential successors to Yeltsin. In Russia, Putin was considered a mere bureaucrat, a former KGB official, which was the Committee for State Security of the Soviet Union. As president, Putin proved to be a completely different figure. Upon gaining power, he immediately targeted the oligarchs, the emerging tycoons who were sources of rampant corruption, arresting many for tax evasion, fraud, and embezzlement. He also swiftly tackled the mafia, which had severely destabilized the daily lives of Russians, restoring order through mass arrests. Putin halted further privatization to prevent national wealth from leaking abroad, and renationalized the oil and gas industries, Russia's largest sectors. This move proved to be a masterstroke, especially as oil prices began to soar. In 2000, his first year as president, the Russian economy grew by 7% as oil prices quintupled, significantly boosting Putin's popularity. With state-owned oil and gas companies benefiting from the surging prices, Russia's finances strengthened. This bolstered Putin's success in the Second Chechen War, preventing further disintegration of the Federation. Putin's popularity soared, with approval ratings exceeding 80%. In 2014, he further cemented his image as a strong leader by annexing Crimea, symbolizing the return of a powerful Russia. Putin is often portrayed in the media with a macho image. He's known for his dramatic appearances, such as flying combat jets, bare-chested hunting of tigers and bears, and even ice swimming in his late 60s. Additionally, he is infamous for deliberately being late to meetings with foreign dignitaries, causing discomfort. These actions have further entrenched his image as a strong, assertive leader among Russians. For Russians, all these actions by Putin symbolize a strong Russia, and Putin himself seems to enjoy and strategically use his macho image to his advantage. Beyond this image, tangible figures demonstrate how much Russia has improved during Putin's tenure. From 2000 to 2008, under Putin's leadership, Russia's economy experienced rapid growth, averaging 7% annually. The absolute poverty rate halved from 30% to 14%. Average wages doubled, university attendance increased by 50%, and youth unemployment dropped to a quarter of its previous level. The rise in welfare led to increased birth rates and life expectancy, while crime and suicide rates significantly decreased. The appearance of cafes, department stores where people could freely shop, and the newfound ability to travel abroad marked a stark contrast to the Russia of the past. On the other hand, Russia has very few political forces capable of replacing Putin. This is partly because Putin preemptively cut off potential rivals, but also because his party, United Russia, holds about 75% of the seats, leaving the rest to minor parties. The main opposition, the Communist Party, mostly appeals to those nostalgic for the Soviet Union. The second and third largest opposition parties are close to neo-Nazism, making their chances of coming to power almost non-existent. Russians are well aware that they do not enjoy the same level of freedom as the Western world, but their perception of freedom differs. Unfortunately, Russia's only experience with democratization was the 10-year period under Yeltsin, which has become a traumatic association for many Russians, equating democracy and freedom with extreme chaos. However, many Russians describe the current era under Putin as the best time in Russian history. They believe they enjoy more freedom than ever before, can travel abroad and pursue any career they desire, as long as they don't overly criticize Putin. So, while it may seem strange to the West, from the Russian perspective, there's little reason not to support Putin. The fear of potential chaos without Putin and the current satisfaction with the status quo are the two main factors driving the absolute support for him.